Yeah, but they're trimming, they're limbing.
Right around.
It's coming way over my, we're doing four trespass too. So I was like,
Oh, yeah. You can't sleep when it's a storm weather. You have things like that.
well,
hanging over your
the
house.
branches didn't bother me, but when the guy came out to give me a.
Oh, good, is that
Don't look at it like that.
Who's doing it ready? Okay, well, I thought you'd do the beginning.
Oh,
She's ready to go.
yeah, they're calling.
Welcome, welcome. Hello, everyone. How are y'all? I am Alice. A lot of catching up to do. But I think the weather, although we have blue sky, ladies. Yay. This is, I'm going to explain a little bit what we're doing today. This is the October meeting of the Avon Garden Club. This is the first time we've gotten together for a meeting in a year. We did have an event at the end of the summer at Jane's house. And so a lot of us saw each other then, but until then, so welcome back. I'm so excited. I was bounty term we were going to meet today, and we did our anti-rain dances. I told everybody, and we won for the moment. This is how our meeting's going to work. We're going to do general membership first. First of all, I have to tell you, we are being recorded. We are not Zooming this, but we will let our members be able to get on and look at our Zoom meeting after the fact. We couldn't quite do the logistics of trying to do a Zoom meeting while we're having a live meeting. We're technically smart, but we're not technically brilliant. After the general membership meeting, we will break out and we'll let, Rosemary's going to come up and do her presentation on mason bees. Then after that, we will have a short little, get your chairs and move to your make and take tables, and we'll create our project. And then at the same time, Jennifer and her team, who are not out here, have prepared a wonderful little box lunch for us that we hope that you will feel comfortable enough to sit here and eat and visit with your friends. The make and take and box lunches are both inside. You just walk in the door and they're pretty obvious to the left and straight ahead. That's the where to and how we hope this is going to work, but let's go for it. I want to start the day with the pledge to the flag. And our flag, Jean's getting our flag.
Process of getting a whole new flag system. So we're just gonna go with this today. I'll just hold that.
And Michelle's going to lead us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we're going to have our inspiration by Sally. Come on up, Sally. Okay, Sally's going to have to talk really loud. I'm going to do the best I can. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Fine. Okay. I just want to preface this by saying I picked this.
There's an airplane overhead. Give it a second.
It's not a beat. All right, go. Okay. I picked this poem out without knowing what the program is going to be, but I think it kind of fits in with the program since it's about bees. This is not about bees, however. Okay, I will go out and look at the flowers. There was one of my kin of another day when the riddle of life defied her powers, and her fretted heart rebelled would say, I will go out and look at the flowers. And after a while, like those who had profit of the cup that Helen distilled in her bowers, returned from the garden, she softly laughed, I have me out to look at the flowers. My heart is so ill with the growth of ills
The world is sheathing these harvest hours, the sword that smites and the shell that kills, while life lies charred beneath the burning towers. Nothing to do, it will be as who wills. Help us to aid. How my hurt soul cowers. Let me drink of the cup that pure beauty distills. I will go out and look at the flowers.
Lovely.
Great. Y'all received the minutes in the mail. Did anybody have any corrections, changes, modifications? Okay, so I would like to get an approval of the minutes at this point. Thank you. Who approved? Who was first? Elisa. We're kind of doing without a secretary today, so we're. And then our horticulture tip. I have to say, Rosemary is presenting a horticulture tip. We might as well call this the Avon Garden Club / Rosemary Cox meeting because she is doing a lot today. And we really appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Let's do environmental.
I basically wired this morning. Can you all hear me? Hold on, let me get this thing right. You can hear? Yes? All right. Basically, I have taken this from treehugger.com. And these are 5 things that sustainable gardeners should never do. The amazing thing is that most of the time we look at things that we should be doing, but sometimes there are things that we should not do because if we do these things, we're going to create more harm than good. And it's Elizabeth Waddington who came up with these 5 things. The first one is don't use non-organic pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers. And even though some of us may do organic gardens, you know, for our vegetables, if you're spraying the bad stuff on your lawn, or if you're trying to kill the weeds on your patio and stuff like that, those toxic chemicals are basically still leaching out into your vegetable garden or into other things. So you're not getting away from the toxic things. So just don't use them. There's lots of non-lethal things to use in your garden. The second tip is don't aim to entirely eradicate problematic species. You know, we look out at our gardens and we're thinking, oh man, all those weeds out there. And, you know, just get out there and just pull them all out. But actually, we need to leave some areas natural. I mean, it's very good. And it may be a surprising thing, but, you know, if you eradicate all of the things and eradicate all of the bad bugs, then you're also eliminating the beneficial predators who eat them. So, you know, what you're going to inadvertently end up doing is proliferating all these bad bugs and all these different things because you've taken away all the natural balance. So leave some areas of your yard natural. And, you know, I would also like to sort of urge you to plant native plants as well, because we need these things. We need the seeds, and we also need the habitat for our native animals and bugs and things like that. Number 3 kind of surprised me. Elizabeth Waddington says not to use peat in your garden. And I'm a real fan, you know, I love when I go to the store, you know, and you buy my plants in peat pots because basically, you know, you just plant them in the garden, it's a peat pot. But the trouble with that is that we are depleting peat bogs, you know, and if you also have compost that is composed of peat moss, then basically what's happening is that we are encouraging this destruction of peat bogs. And peat bogs are carbon sinks. So that basically they, you know, take in all this carbon dioxide, which is creating our climate change problems. And not only that, it's also destroying the biodiversity of the areas where they're mining this stuff out. So again, try and find compost that does not have peat in it, or better yet, make your own compost. You should be making your own in a compost heap anyway. And also try to avoid buying things in the store that actually are composed of peat. I think we've all heard about not using plastics. I mean, try and stay away from plastics. Actually, you can reuse plastic over and over and over again. And as a matter of fact, when we do our bee houses today, yes, it's plastic, but we are actually we are reusing plastic. So if you're reusing it, it's not so bad. But again, stay away from things where you can. Like for instance, when you buy garden tools, you don't need plastic handles. Have something that's wooden or something that can be replaced. Also avoid plastic netting and different things that you can avoid plastic with. And then finally, the last tip, number 5, is don't excessively pave a space. We just love our patios and all of our wonderful gardens, but gardens are essentially they are for plants and they're for wildlife. They're not just exclusively for people. So, be very careful about, when you design your garden to, reserved areas. We need to basically, what does she say here? We need to maximize photosynthesis in our gardens, regreening, not graying. So keep that in mind as you're planning your gardens. So those are the 5 don't do's for the environmental tip today. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, Miss Linda.
I think this is a blue day. Look, everything's got blue.
We're hoping for blue
Here, come
skies.
stand in front of the camera.
Oh, I can move it. You can use it.
Well, I had this printed out, so. This is what Walter Reed says to do in October. Plant fescue, fall plant fescue planting season officially begins. Watering restrictions are still enforced. No, I don't know about that anymore. It just must be all. In many places. Okay. Apply pre-emergent, last chance to apply a weed preventer to Bermuda grass, zoysia, centipede lawns to thwart winter weeds like chickweed and annual bluegrass. And then give your poinsettia plenty of light. Does anybody have a poinsettia right now?
Yes.
Do you?
Look at a lot of people do.
All right. Beautiful. If you want your poinsettia to turn color by Christmas, now's the time to begin giving 14 hours of darkness and 10 hours of bright light each day. Then trim back your woody plants, trim back 1/4 any woody plant you've kept outdoors during the summer to help them fit inside your home for the winter. And fertilize new fescue. That's week 1. Week 2, plant pansies. The pansy planting season has begun. Plant 6-pack pansies 8 inches apart. Larger plants can be spaced 10 inches apart. And cut back flower stems, cut brown flower stems, purple coneflower, black-eyed Susan, daylily, and hosta back to ground level. Bring in patio plants, fertilize new pansies. I'll go through this little faster. Apply weed preventer. Okay, then week 3, clean up your fall and fruit. Does anybody have fruit?
Other than
No fruit trees.
crab apples.
Let's get that one. Plant spring bulbs, plant spring flowering bulbs like tulip, daffodil, and hyacinth. Divide daylilies. Finish dividing daylily clumps, rhizomes, and peony roots. Plant them into a well-dug bed immediately. One last mowing. Remove faded roses. Then week 4, cut back faded flowers. Replace mulch. Check your pesticides in storage. Bring root cuttings inside and fertilize your pansies. And that's it.
Those of you who are not familiar with Walter Reed's monthly calendars, I live by them and they are great. The only problem is they're about 3 to 4 weeks ahead of us now with global warming, I think. So just kind of look at it, but love the man.
Yeah,
Played soccer with my kids. His kids played soccer with my kids.
that's an article in the morning paper on Thursday.
Oh, yeah, Thursdays, he always, I haven't read it.
He was our guest.
Yes, yes.
We knew him early on when he first started out. He spoke to the garden club.
Yeah, and he came back a couple.
Just a young
long time
man
ago, 10 years.
with his first wife.
Yes. Oh, we can get into that.
I just added that because I thought he had a history with involved.
Yeah, he's been a DeKalb County person for a long time. Sue, you want to do your budget report?
It'll take about a second.
This was sent out in your email. So it's there, but I just want Sue to recap for us.
Let me
Sue.
just change glasses.
Gee, can you go get Jennifer to get her? We're very casual today. But that's the way of the world nowadays, isn't it?
We're really is.
We're fluid. Oh, I like that.
Okay, for the first time in 2.5 years since I've been treasurer, and probably long before that, we have had no income in the last 4 weeks. No dues, no brick money, no nothing. And we had expenses of $73.66, which was for membership and your beautiful name tags that are now sustainable, reusable,
Yay.
what we stand for. We currently stand with a balance in our bank account of $4,858.32. And also, Carolyn Chandler, who's one of the people that were heading up the Avondale Elementary School garden project, asked me for a breakdown of the expenses. And so also I included in this month's budget just the check registry so that you can see that we took in, even though we weren't doing anything to collect money as a fundraiser for the garden club, there was this other project. We took in $4,065, mostly in brick sales and a couple of earmarked donations, with expenses of $55,3602 for a total cost to our garden club of $1,470.02.
And she was budgeted for what?
I don't have that with me at the
1,200.
moment.
1,200.
And the
Yeah.
reason I asked for that is that part of our report to National Garden Club and Plant America grant that we have to do.
So be sure to see her display up at the front that shows where it was spent, how much grant money, how much volunteer hours. So we were, part of the project, a drop in the bucket, but a very worthwhile and well invested as far as this garden club is concerned. Thank you.
It's a great project. See Jennifer and her committee standing on the stairs. So Frank's gonna turn our camera and Jennifer's gonna introduce her team and give us some words of advice. On how to
There's more people.
Okay.
I'm gonna open the second door.
You need a.
Hi, thanks for coming. We have Rosemary Musfeller, Joanne Thompson, Catherine Chastain, Carol Gray, Susan Williams Rogers, and Linda Mast was with us in the kitchen. I don't know where she went. But we went, and Jean was helping us as well. So thank you very much. We had a few last minute helpers come to join us. So thank you ladies very much for coming to pitch in. I really appreciate that. We have a bagged lunch for you this afternoon. They'll be set up on the tables as you enter. You are having chicken salad sandwiches this afternoon. Most of the bread does have nuts in it. I do have 2 or 3 bags of regular bread set to the side that says no nuts. So if you're one of those ladies, please look for that. I also have a few pimento cheese sandwiches for those of you that are not interested in eating chicken salad. There's just a couple of those. So really, if you're truly a vegetarian, please make sure you get those. If you're just sort of not in the mood for chicken salad, if you could just wait to the end to make sure that those that need those get those. We'll have slices of cake available for you. Those are not bags, so please watch out for that. And we have bottled water with Crystal Light packages for you if you wanted something a little fancier than water. Those are available as well.
Great.
Started talking when?
6 weeks ago.
Well, she took a 2-week vacation in Europe. So,
Oh,
but so she's got it together as always. And we really appreciate her doing this and making our first meeting back even more special. Thanks, Jennifer and team. Thanks. The committee reports are next. I sent those out and I do apologize. The original email was blank. I don't know how that happened. but I found them and I resent them last night. So if you haven't had a chance to read them, they are there. But I do have a couple of committees that want to stand up and do their thing here. So the first one I have is Federation.
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank everybody who donated holiday cards for the Federation military card drive. We ended up with 60 cards. I took them over and delivered them last Thursday and was actually able to find out where those cards are going. We've never had this before. They're mostly going around the Middle East. And bear with me, my pronunciations are not great on some of these countries, but they're going to Kuwait, Djibouti, Kosovo, and Qatar. And those will go to the service people who are over in serving in those countries. Also, Federation is starting to do a collection similar to our hand tab collection, but they'll be collecting wine corks and natural wine corks, not the plastic ones, because there is the cork trees are suffering and they're getting harder and harder to get natural cork. And there's a company that's, I'm not sure how local they are. I think they're in the States somewhere where they grind up these natural corks and use them for flooring or shoe soles or whatever. So they're not having to collect more cork from the trees. So I think probably when we start meeting in person again on a regular basis, we'll have a collection bin where we can collect the wine corks.
Oh, I hoped you were gonna say we were gonna have one.
They drink it, yeah. But that's coming in the future. And again, not the plastic corks. They'll only want the natural, real corks. And last of all, the next Federation meeting will be via Zoom. And when we get the invitation to that, we'll send it out to everyone. There's going to be a speaker discussing how to set up water features, which should be good. And I think it's anything from a little container water feature to a giant pond with a waterfall. It should be pretty interesting. It'll be on October 28th. And their meetings are usually at 10 o'clock and it'll be Zoom. So that's all I have for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to put a plug in for the Federation meetings, especially Zoom. They're very easy to go to. I love going to them, but they do have some interesting programs. The program last month was the director and founder of Thrive, Char, and talked about that program. Very informative, very good speaker, but they just have lots of interesting things going on. So try to attend those things. Next one, Mary Lou, you got Garden of the Month.
Yeah, let me get the address here. This month's Garden of the Month is 117 Berkeley Road, home of Rutledge Bruce.
Oh, yeah. Sure that made her happy. Thank you. Rosemary's inside, but she wants me to remind y'all, taps, 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 taps. Okay. We all should be drinking lots now. So please bring your tabs in if you have them. And she said, drop them off at her house if that's convenient. You don't necessarily, if you're out and about, just take them by her. She's got a table on her thing. Youth, Carolyn wanted to talk about youth and programs.
The boards out front speak to everything. You can see how many volunteers. We had over 175 volunteers and the hours are there and the money is there. Pictures are there. So I'm not going to go into all that. What I do want to tell you is I submitted last night a request for a proclamation from the city about the project as the culmination and final bit of it. It is complete. We can use that if we get it for the grant and report. And so if you happen to be buddies with any of the commissioners, you know, wouldn't hurt to put
has to be read if they approve it on the 27th at their 5:30 meeting. I will let Kathy know and she can send out a email if you would like to attend. Hopefully we will have a reading at that meeting and then possibly a little volunteer thank you party afterwards.
Thank you, Carolyn.
I had that, I'm still gonna switch stuff up now because I wasn't thinking when I did this. Instead of doing Frank's program and program introduction, I want to know if there's any old business that the membership needs to talk about. Oh, there's Linda. She reappeared.
Thank you, Linda.
What did I do? Lunch, I'm sorry. Pop on up.
Right. Environmental committee. The environmental committee has been busy as bees, pun intended. Actually, there's a couple of things I wanted to mention. The board for the recycling thing is actually out there, the display board that was created while Kathy Dupre was the head of the environmental committee. And someone at the last Zoom meeting had asked about that board and had asked where it was. There it is. I'm also looking for someone who would like to volunteer to coordinate the board. In other words, it's supposed to go on display at like schools and various venues around town. So if anybody would like to volunteer to be the coordinator for the board, you don't even have to be on the environmental committee. Just let me know because it's really a beautiful thing and it needs to be out there in the public. We don't need to be just sitting on it. The other thing is coming up is the Halloween litter, post-Halloween litter pickup. We have the sign-up sheet on the board here. Kathy Cavallero is actually going to coordinate this. So you will be hearing from her. She's I think she's coming back from California today. But the bottom line is we have essentially a street map of Avondale here. So just look at the map and if there's a particular street that you would like to clean up or pick up after the Halloween thing, just go ahead and put your name on the sheet here and the street. And if you don't know what street, but you still want to volunteer, just put your name on here and then you'll be hearing from Kathy Cavallero as time goes by. The litter pickup, it's obviously November the 1st. Everybody meets at the Kensington Triangle at 10 o'clock in the morning and we take it from there. So I'm going to start it over here with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other committees?
Did you know that Mary Fite's husband had died?
Yes, I
Oh,
think
good.
I sent a notice out
Good,
about that.
good. I did not know that at the end of it.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, that was a shame. I wrote her a little note too. I think she sent us. So is there any old business that we need, that they need members want to talk about at this point? We need to talk about for the club? Okay, I do have a couple of things that we at the front table want to talk about. Pancake breakfast. I think we've narrowed it down to do it early spring. And I sort of wanted to get some nods from y'all. We're thinking March. It'll still be cool. There's not a lot going on. You know, we just couldn't get our act together with everything going on in the world for November, but so we're aiming for there. And then that's our goal.
And in addition to the pancake breakfast, we have our wonderful boutique that we happen to make a lot of money. So we want to continue that. And we're also thinking about, since it's early spring, it would be great to have like a little seedlings store attached to it. If everybody did just a couple little seedlings, we could sell that as well. So we have like a real sort of garden part of it. And I don't know about you, but I just gather things in my house and put it in a box and wait for the boutique. And now I have a couple boxes ready for this. What we do need is a chair for the boutique. So think about that's something that you would really like to do. It's kind of fun. You get to set up a shop. You have wonderful volunteers to help you. So keep that in mind. Come to us. Let us know you want to be in the chair.
I'm not raising my hand to be chair, just to be clear.
I put you down.
It's like you get an option, you know, don't
Sorry,
raise your
but it's
hand.
a done deal now.
But there's some people here that haven't participated or know about what the boutique is and how it works and all that, so you might just want to give a little
Yes, well,
summary.
basically it's kind of like a yard sale. We try to keep it sort of garden themed. So you gather stuff that you would like maybe give away to a thrift store, or you think you just would find it put there. And we set it up like a little shop. And it's so much fun to go through there. We really sell things in it. And it's a good way to clean out your house and also raise some money for here. And I know that for the years that, well, this would be in spring, but I used to give my daughter some money to go into the shop, and she would buy all of her Christmas gifts for everybody in my family at the garden boutique. So it has some fond memories.
I just want to add that it's in conjunction with the pancake breakfast. It's held at the same time. And that the last time we had one, 50-50 was a split. I think Carolyn, you and Mary were doing the boutique. And we made $2,500 on the pancake breakfast and $2,500 at the boutique. So
Yeah.
it really is our big fundraiser of the year.
And I have to add to that is that as the years have progressed, more people want to work at the boutique than want to work at the pancake breakfast.
Don't tell them that.
It's more fun. So if you've been a worker bee and you have tons of support, it's not like you're doing it by yourself. Nothing in this club is one person, it's a whole team. And then I'm going to turn over to Mary Lou again to talk about the holiday party.
Okay. Well, I'll still have this. So, last year we had our Zoom holiday party bingo. It was a lot of fun. But this year we really like to get together. But it's going to look a little bit different this year. We're not going to do dinner, but we're going to do an earlier outdoor cocktail party
With a bonfire.
with bonfire, which I will talk to you about. So it'll be, probably we haven't ironed out the details, but it'll just look different. I'll be on the patio and on the porch. I'll have one signature cocktail and then bring your own wine if you want to. We'll have like little pickup bites and stuff. And I'm thinking like maybe something like 6:30 to 7:30 or something around that range, so that you guys could plan and we could all gather and have a really great time. And then you can have little dinner pods go off if you want to plan and have dinner together or go out together or go to each other's houses and stuff. But I just thought it'd be a really great, safe way for us all to celebrate together. And that's the plan.
And Mary Lou, spouses are invited as well as normal for that party.
Absolutely, yes.
And what is the day?
It's the first Friday in December.
The
I'm
third.
thinking
I
the
think it's the
third.
yeah,
It's
the
early.
third.
It's
Third.
a Friday evening. It's the first Friday evening.
Okay.
It's always a much loved event. Our spouses love it. They will probably be crying in their soup because they won't get the best food in Avondale.
Yeah, it's
But-
usually, but it's gonna be good.
It's gonna be good tidbits. Yes, but
And we'll remind you to, you can dress, for the season, but warm.
thank you. Mary Lou, this was her brainchild and we've been mulling it over for a couple of months. I think we firmed it up last night. And speaking of last night, those of you who are not aware, we are doing the board meetings the night before the meeting now. It just made our morning so much more relaxed this time. We get to visit with us and we get to sort of talk. If anybody, they're still open. They've been held at my house. If you have something you want to talk about or you want to present to the board, please just let me know. You're always welcome. It's just, we didn't want to have to rent the community club out on the night before, and it just worked out this way. So that's been a real thing. I'm going to say one quick thing. I want to say thank you to all of everyone who helped make our first in-person meeting happen today. It was a team effort. It took a lot of thought, coordination, and goodwill to get here today. And I really, really appreciate all of you attending. Hopefully, we'll be together in November. Things are looking much better. So thank you, and give y'all a pause for coming to this meeting. Now, we're going back to Frank. Frank is going to talk about our November program and sort of set us up for today's program.
Thank you, Kathy.
We're moving.
So,
No, I'm just gonna make sure you're in camera.
no, I think I am.
Oh, you're so good, Frank.
So, you may have been going around DeKalb County looking at seeing gardens on by the side of the road and thinking, who manages these gardens? Are they managed by an organization or are they just a group of neighbors? Well, the speaker in November manages 8 of these gardens in DeKalb County, and they're called their name is the Global Growers Network. So please come to the meeting to find out, what they're doing, which gardens they manage, and that type of thing. So, as Kathy mentioned, hopefully we don't know how the meeting is going to be, but hopefully we can decide whether we're going to have an face-to-face meeting or combination Zoom. We'll work something out. But please come to that meeting. So, do you want me to start? Okay. So we're so glad you came today. I mean, we're so excited that this is our first face-to-face meeting in a year and a half. And I wore this, and normally I don't wear baseball type caps to meetings, but I wore this to the executive board meeting yesterday because my hair was a fright, and they said, just wear a cap. So then they said, well, you've got to wear it because it's got the beads on it that then it relates to the program today. So I would like to introduce our speaker today. I mean, I'm a new member to this club, and I'm learning that we have so many talented members. And we're pleased to have Rosemary Cox as our presenter today. And I want to read just a brief bio on her before she starts with her presentation, and then we'll be doing the hands-on. An avid gardener and devoted environmentalist, Dr. Cox retired from Perimeter College of Georgia State University, 2014, but still teaches English there part-time. She is on the advisory board of the GSU Perimeter College Native Plant Biological Garden, is a tree speaker with Trees Atlanta, and volunteers as a docent at the Atlanta Botanical Garden. So I would like to turn it over to Rosemary at this time. And
Well, hello again. I was at the Atlanta Botanical Garden just the other day doing my docent thing, and I noticed that it was absolutely full of bees, honeybees, bumblebees. I think every bee in the city of Atlanta was there at the Atlanta Botanical Garden, but it's such an oasis there. It's so beautiful, and they've got it all decked out for the Halloween, scarecrows in the garden. I'm not really advertising the ABG at this point, but it really is spectacular. It really is lovely. We're going to talk about mason bees today. How many of you know what a mason bee is? Some of you know what a mason bee is. They are not honeybees. Mason bees are very, very tiny little things. They're probably smaller than your fingernail on your little finger, and they're definitely not honeybees. There's actually they get their name because they use mud or other masonry products to build their nests. So little mason bees, they're the little kind of the mud bees, not the blue tail flies that put those mud things, on the side of your house. Those are not what we're talking about. These are tiny, tiny little bees. There's actually about 300 species of them in the Northern Hemisphere. They are worldwide, but we have 300 species here in the Northern Hemisphere. And in the US, the most common is the orchard mason bee, or sometimes known as the blue orchard mason bee, and also the blueberry bee. And if you want the biological name, that's Osmia lignaria and Osmia riviflores. I'm not really big into the Latin names for the animals here. But anyway, they're very tiny. They're blue or black in color. And sometimes some of them have like sort of an iridescent kind of bluey green on them, depending upon what the species is. But the most little common little orchard bees are basically little sort of black, tiny little things. And you might even mistake them for flies. So you've got to really kind of look very carefully. It's kind of interesting. The males are a little bit smaller than the females, and they have a little white tuft on the front of their little heads. They're kind of cute. Well, they're all cute, the females as well as the males. They're very gentle bees. The males do not even have stings, and the females, even though they have stings, they're not barbed and they're very gentle. Can we say that a sting is gentle? And the only time they would sting would be is if you squish the bee or threaten it in some way. I mean, they're not out to get you. Really, they're not. They're also solitary bees. There is no queen. They don't live in hives. There are no worker bees. Basically, they are just sort of on their own. They're little solitary bees. Every female is fertile and she makes her nest. And basically, that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be making a bee house or a bee abode or whatever you want to call it. We're actually going to be making a little nest box to encourage our little mason bees to make their nests and hatch out. They do not produce honey or beeswax. But they are very early season pollinators. They are absolutely wonderful for the garden, and they are the very first ones out. They actually come out when the temperature has been at least 50 degrees for several days in a row. And for us here in Georgia, that's usually the end of February, early March. And then they only live for about 30 to 40 days. So basically the poor little babies are dead by early or mid-April. So it's just a very short period of time that they're out there working. As far as their nesting habits are concerned, in the natural world, basically they nest in gaps like cracks in stones or other small dark cavities, and they also like hollow stems. I know that Christine Patrum from the Native Plant Botanical Garden at Perimeter always encourages us not to be fastidious about clearing out our gardens at the end of the fall, because all of those dead stems that you leave in there actually are habitat for insects, and particularly little mason bees. They like to get in there. They're very fond of bamboo too. They like that. But the bottom line is they also can nest in cavities made by other wood-boring insects. In other words, those carpenter bees that we all abhor, but they make those carpenter bees will actually drill the holes. The little mason bees will come behind and they will put their little mud nests in those as well sometimes. Sometimes on your house siding, particularly if there's like a gap or a crack, you'll see the little mud things and then you'll think, no, they're destroying my house. No, they are not. They may make a little bit of a muddy mess, but they're not drilling holes in your house. I have also seen my place down in Henry County, they get in and they make their little mud nests inside the electrical outlets. Particularly if you have an outlet outside that's not closed over, they'll get into those little gaps and they'll mud them up. But of course, what we're going to do is, they also like all different kinds of nest boxes. And there's lots of different sorts that you can get to buy them. Michelle and I just the other day went to Ace Hardware and looked at the whole array of different mason bee nests. Some people that like to do woodwork actually make, blocks, put them up like birdhouses, and other people put, they have like a metal can. When I was at the Wild Center, they made bee houses out of soup cans. But the soup cans were not actually long enough, but they should have been longer. But anyway, there's lots of different things. And you can also buy special straws that go in them. And as a matter of fact, in your kits today, you have some of the straws that are you can buy them online, but you're also going to make some straws because they like straws of different sizes. And when you put your bee house together, you'll have like different sizes for your straws in there. Also on the straws, some people actually have the straws and then they put a liner on the inside of white paper so that when you're cleaning them out, it's easy to just, pull them out like that. As far as attracting mason bees, obviously they have to have a food source, okay? Pollen. And they need that within 300 feet of the nest. Mason bees are they stay close to home. This is why it's so good to have them in your garden, because they pollinate your garden. They don't necessarily go flying off into your neighbor's or your neighbor's garden 5 miles away. Honeybees will actually fly up to 4 to 5 miles away from the hive. Mason bees stay within that 300 feet. So they're really, really good. They prefer what we call composite flowers, something like a daisy. Dandelions are one of their favorites. And also open petaled flowers, especially fruit tree flowers, things like apples and plums, especially those that are early in the season because they're open. And they really love blueberries, interestingly enough. I guess because they like to get up inside the little, you know how the blueberry flower is, little sort of a cup, and they love to get up in there. So if you have blueberries in your yard and want them pollinated, it's a good idea to have mason bee houses around there. But they will get pollen from any flower, but those are their favorites. They need a source of mud. You know, they're mason bees, okay? And it's like, well, you know, we've all got mud in our garden, right? But what you can do is, if you don't have a source of mud, something within 20 to 30 feet of the nest, you can make a little mud hole. They like clay, particularly, nothing that's going to be sandy or silt. They have to have something that they can gather and actually make their little mud plugs. Just a few things, mason bees versus honeybees, and not that one is better than another. They all have their special little value. They're all wonderful animals, well, insects. But the mason bees are active at lower temperatures than the honeybees. So the masons are coming out first. They're pollinating those early flowers. So masons fly at between 50 to 54 degrees. Honeybees stay in their hives until it's about 57 to 59 degrees. So they're a little bit, they like warmer temperatures. Mason bees will fly in light rain, whereas honeybees will stay in their hives. Mason bees are also early risers and late nighters. They're out there gathering pollen. As we said, they stick close to home. And fewer mason bees are required to pollinate a fruit tree. So let's just say we have an apple tree in our yard. How many mason bees do you think it would take to pollinate a fruit tree like an apple? Anybody want to hazard a guess?
50.
50. Anybody else? The answer to that question, it takes 7 mason bees to pollinate an entire fruit tree. Now, how many honeybees do you think it takes to pollinate that very same tree? 50? Anybody else? Couple of hundred? You're closer. It takes 545 honeybees to pollinate that very same fruit tree. It's amazing. And of course, mason bees are very efficient pollinators. What happens is that they just kind of like go into the flower and they just get it all over their little hairy bodies. And then they just go on to the next flower and all the pollen that's all over them just flops all over the rest of the flowers. So they're very efficient as far as pollinating. A honeybee, on the other hand, goes into the flower and actually collects the pollen and sticks it into its little sacs on its legs. I'm sure you've seen honeybees that have, you know, those very heavy legs. But what's happening as they're stuffing that pollen into their pollen sacs, that pollen is not being spread around onto flowers. So that's why the mason bees are much more efficient at pollinating than honeybees. And even in commercial pollinating things, you know, people that take their honeybees hives out on the road, they will kind of mix. They'll have some honeybee hives and some mason bee hives as well. Mason bee tubes here. So that basically they're pollinating orchards, commercial orchards with both kinds of bees there. Of course, the way they're pollinating is one of the reasons why they are so very, very important. But I wanted to say a few things about the life cycle of a mason bee. Basically, they emerge from their nests in the early spring. And it's kind of interesting. The males come out first and they hang around for a few days eating pollen. And then the females come out after that. And it's amazing because when the little female bee makes her nest in the tubes, she lays the eggs so that the female eggs, or the eggs that will become females, are at the back of the tube. And then the males, the eggs that will become the males, are at the front of the tube. And that's why it's so very important that we have tubes that are at least 6 inches long. 6 to 7 inches is about the thing there. If it's shorter than that, then all you're going to get would be males. You wouldn't get males as well as females. You want to make sure that we have a balance of males and females on that. Anyway, so when the females hatch out, then they mate, and the males die after that. And about 3 to 4 days after mating, the females begin their nesting. And what she does is she'll find an appropriate nesting site, and she'll take a plug of mud and she will put that at the back of the tube. And when we make our bee houses, when you have your tube, you're going to need to bend the end, close the end of the tube, even though it's in a plastic bottle here that's closed at the end here like this. we still need to make sure we close it because she needs to pack her piece of mud at the end there. So she puts a little piece of mud in there, and then she flies around and she collects pollen and nectar to make a pollen ball. It takes about 15 to 20 trips to do that. And she's visiting 75 to 100 flowers a day to get enough pollen. But anyway, she makes the little pollen ball. She sticks that next to the mud plug. Then she lays her egg on near the pollen ball. And then she'll go and get another load of mud and she'll seal that. And what she's doing is she's going down the tube and she's sealing it as she goes along. When she gets to the end of the tube, she plugs it, she seals it, closed at the top there. And then she's ready to go and find another place to do her another tube, another nest. And basically she can lay 30 to 40 eggs in her lifetime. She's such a tiny little bee, 30 to 40 eggs, but basically she's dead at about the end of 30 to 40 days. So that's essentially about it. As far as the eggs that are left in the tubes here, they hatch in a few days and they feed on that pollen ball for about 10 days. Then they spin a cocoon and pupate within that cell. And what happens is that they literally become little mason bees inside the cocoon. So basically at summer's end, you have adult bees inside the cocoons. And in the natural world, they stay in those cocoons in the tubes until the springtime, and then they hatch out again about end of February, and then the cycle starts all over again. The problem is that there are parasites. There are parasites with honeybees, but the honeybee parasites are a little different from the parasites that we get with mason bees, but nevertheless, it's still very destructive. There's the Crombian mite, which essentially gets on the female bee when she's out gathering pollen on the flowers, and she takes that back to the nest. And those little mites essentially will devour the pollen, which means that the little larva from the mason bee dies because it has nothing to eat. And an even bigger problem are the calchid wasps. And officially they're known as Monodontamerus. We just call them mono wasps, okay? But what these things do is, even though they're very, very tiny, what they'll do is they'll fly in to the nest, and sometimes they'll even drill through a tube. But what they're doing is they'll get in and they'll make a hole in the cocoon, and they lay their egg in there. And then, of course, when that egg hatches out, that larva from the wasp eats the mason bee larva. So what you're doing then, of course, is eliminating the mason bees. So, really and truly, when you make your bee house today, if you want to just put it outside in your garden and just leave it, you're free to do that. No problem. But to guarantee that you're really going to have a good hatching on your mason bees, you probably want to go in and manage your mason nest box, your mason bee box. And actually, in the kit, you're going to have a handout, which essentially goes through the steps of how to build the house. And also, you've got how to care for the mason bees. I've got it all written down for you here. So, you know, if you don't catch it all today, don't worry about it. It's all written down for you. But basically what you're going to be doing is in June and July, in other words, you put your little house out probably February. So you hang it out in your garden, wherever you want it to be. And then you leave it out there until about June or July, early summer. You want to take it in. And it's a good idea to put it in a mesh bag. You can also put it in a paper bag and put it in a garage or a place where it's not heated and it's not air conditioned. It just needs to be in a safe place. Again, the bag, particularly the mesh bag, is there to stop these parasites from getting in. If you leave it out there in the yard, then these parasites will get in. But anyway, you need to check the bag periodically, you know, because sometimes those parasites, they'll crawl out. So just keep a good eye on it to make sure they're not getting in there. So anyway, in the fall, October to December, in other words, like now, what you want to do is that you take the cocoons out of the tubes. And this is like, what? But yeah, you dump it all out, probably put it in a big pan here, and you like open the tubes and literally clean out, because it's going to be, you know, mud and bee poop and all kinds of gunk in there. And what you want to do is just like scrape all that stuff off, okay? And then what you can do is actually wash the cocoons. Now these cocoons are pretty strong. Don't worry about it. But you can kind of soak them in a solution, a very mild bleach solution, Clorox. Essentially what you're doing is, you know, just kind of rubbing them around there to get all the parasites, and the fungus and mites and everything off of them. Then you put them out on a towel, and it's better to do this outside in the cool, because if you have them inside your house, the little bees are going to start hatching out.
Is that in the instructions? So
Yes,
we-
yes, it's in the instructions. So basically what you're going to do, let the cocoons dry. And then what you do is you bring them into the house, and you need to store them over the winter, believe it or not, in the refrigerator. So what you can do, you can make yourself a little thing, get a piece, like a tube from a toilet roll or from a paper towel. And what you do is staple the one end, and then you get all these dried cocoons cleaned, put them into the tube, and then close the top, staple it, and put it in the refrigerator, usually in the vegetable drawer or the cheese drawer. And I guess you have to warn your family that, you don't need to have those bees in there. But anyway, in the early spring, again, when the temperatures are about 50 degrees or higher, what you want to do is get a cardboard box. And what you're going to do is you open up your toilet roll thing, put your little cocoons in there, and seal the box except for one hole on the side, a small hole. And you just set that out in your garden and put it somewhere near, have your new bee house with your clean tubes, put it out there in the garden. They come out of the cocoons and starts all over again. So that's essentially what we're going to do. Anyhow, I thought my magician's assistant here was going to sort of she's going to model this thing. We're going to sort of walk you through the steps of making the bee house today. And again, these instructions are all on your handout in your kit. You've got the handout here. Your kit basically contains a bee house, a plastic jar. We're emphasizing recycling. These have, what was it was in them, Michelle? Monster.
It was Monster Energy drink, which we bought it and we thought, okay, cool, drink the stuff that's in there, but
we decided against that. But the deal is you needed at least 7 inches long, and that was the hard thing, and preferably with the straight sides. And the reason is because the tubes have to be at least 6 inches long, and they're varying lengths, and you need enough sort of overhang so that it's not going to get wet in the rain. So we have the bee tube in there, and Michelle and I had cut the tops off for you, but because
and
that
recycled them.
yes, we did, but you need to make sure that because the end was rough, so you're going to need to put some tape. We have some duct tape for you around it, so around the edge there to make it smooth. The other thing is, after you've done that, you want to go ahead and make sure to get your handle. We've pre-drilled the holes, so you'll have to get your hand in there and get your yarn.
It's easy. Yeah, your hands will fit in here.
And if you have trouble, we'll help you do that. But anyway, you have to make your little hanger in there. And if you don't like yarn, if you're making one of these on your own, you can also use a piece of wire. I know when we did it at the Wild Center, they used wire, but they put a piece of tape on the inside. I guess they don't want the rough edge, but we thought the yarn worked very nicely.
And
So,
can I
sure,
intervene
carry
this?
on, my dear.
The yarn, I figured out the easiest way to do this is to push the end of your yarn through the back hole and grab it, lean in and grab it and pull it out, and then do a double knot on it. And then you can pull it through and the knot will stay. And then you just do the same thing on this end, push it through from the top. You can pull it out, you'll have enough slack, knot it, and then pull it up and you'll have a handle like that that'll be secure. You want to double knot your yarn so that it won't pull out through the hole.
And also, Michelle, while you're on it, tell them about the tape.
Oh, the tape, yes. The strip of the tape is on the table, and what you'll want to do is cut a piece probably about this long and put it around the edge, but you want to put it lower, not center it around the edge. You want to have a little more on the outside so that when you fold it over, you won't see the white lining of the tape. And you'll also want to notch it a few times, make little tabs and then turn the tabs under, and you'll have a nice clean edge on your tube, and you won't be scraping your hands on the cut pieces.
Right. And we tried several different types of tape, and we found that duct tape probably worked about the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, masking tape is not going to hold up to the weather.
No, and mine is different. When I did mine, I used what they call washi tape. That's basically masking tape with a design on it. I will probably use masking tape or duct tape over the top because this will not be weatherproof. I'm sure it'll peel right off as soon as it gets wet, but it does look pretty.
Anyway, once you've got the bee house itself kind of prepared, we have supplied you with some of the prefabricated tubes here. And again, you can go online and buy these. They're not that expensive, really. But we've included some of those in there. And again, remember to close the one end and put that at the back. And then we were going to let you make the longer tubes. And for that, again, we're into recycling here. We spent time cutting up paper bags. And you have a pencil. And basically what you'll be doing is rolling it around the pencil. And you want to make it, several thicknesses. So roll it and then use your masking tape to hold it together. On mine, I use 3 pieces of masking tape to sort of hold it together. And well, I think we figured out with this particular bee house, I think we've given you 21 pre-made tubes. And so you would be making 21 paper tubes. But again, it varies, and do it as you like it. And the bees like them mixed and matched in there. So in different things there.
And also, excuse me, you
Carry
have
on,
to,
my
close off the end of these tubes as well, just
Yes.
like the pre-made ones. And it's easy these are pretty steady, pretty sturdy, the pre-made tubes.
Go ahead, finish it.
It's easy to use your pencil to kind of bend those edges in so you don't break your nails.
I used my nails.
Is it important to fill the big container all the way with tubes, or can it be half full?
You don't have to fill it all the way, no. But it's more stable if you do, because well, no, that's obviously not packed in very well, but if you've really got them packed in there, it's more stable than it would be. But no, you don't have to do that. The other thing you can do if you want to is that you can decorate the outside as you wish. I think Kathy Dupre had suggested you could put contact paper on the outside of it. You could paint it. You could put stickers on it. Kids love doing this stuff, by the way. So it's just a fun project. Yes, ma'am?
Does that attract them somehow, seeing the decoration? Do they notice that?
I don't think so. We had debated this, Michelle and I, when we bought the masking tape. The duct tape. We thought, well, if it's like iridescent orange or something like that, it might scare them away. So we went with muted tones. So I would suggest you make it more natural rather than, psychedelic. I don't think I would try that. No, right?
Is there any right or wrong way to close the end of the tube?
No, not at all. And as a matter of fact, even if you didn't close the end of the tubes, because the end of our bee house is solid back, it is important that you have a solid back at the back. Some people make these things out of PVC pipes.
Okay.
And if you do that, you're going to have to get something to close the end out. But it just helps her put her mud plug, the first one, in if you got it closed at the end. But no, she'll plug it even if you haven't closed it. Absolutely.
Didn't you say something earlier about different size tubes?
Yes, there's no magic. Now the length is important, but as far as how wide it is, how big it is, no. And if you buy commercial ones, and as a matter of fact, if you go online, and by the way, there is a website that I've given you. It's called crownbees.com. At Crown Bees, you can buy bee houses. You can buy the cocoons. If you want to start another generation of bees, you can actually buy the cocoons. And you can buy all kinds of stuff. Instead of doing bleach, you buy the stuff that you can spray on them, blah, 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 blah. But the deal is, some of these bee houses are in different shapes. They go really fancy, like some are heart shaped and some are like bird houses. So no, the only thing you have to worry about is length. It's got to be a minimum of 6 inches long and 7. These are probably closer to 7, the ones you make yourself. But other than that, no.
Use a fat pencil for some.
Oh, you're talking about the width of the tube. Oh, thank you. Yes, no, the width of the tube is important. Anything smaller than this is not going to be big enough because she's got to get into it. She's not going to like something that's really big. If you're using a really fat pencil, it's probably not going to be good. This pencil is probably about the right size. So yeah, what you see on these two, that's about the width that you need.
I see a fat one there.
Oh, that's unrolled.
It's not taped.
It's
yet.
not taped. That's
Yeah,
why you
it's
tape it.
sort of
But no, it
under
needs to be
itself.
about the size of the pencil. Yeah, absolutely. Jean, I think you had a
Do
question.
multiple of these use the same house?
I think they do. Yes. They're gentle. They don't seem to fight with each other. I mean, I'm not ruling out the fact that they might fight, but as far as I know, they don't. Anything else? Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
so curious about these bees. So they're not colony dependent at all, right?
No.
They independent livers except for mating, of course.
Yes.
And how do they carry the mud if they're so small? How do they carry it?
Yeah, I have watched particularly those wasps, those blue tail flies that make all those mud houses on your house. I have watched how they carry it, and they like go out to where the mud is and they kind of like roll it up, and it's like in their mouths. They're like holding it. You can actually see them fly in holding that mud. There must be like little feet or
Little shovels.
Yeah. They're holding it, but it's like up to their front and they're holding it. They fly on and then they like buzz it into their nest. I have not actually seen a mason bee with mud in its mouth, but I'm assuming that would be the way it carries it. Yeah, they're marvelous. They truly are marvelous. Well, is this the exciting moment when everybody gets to go and get their bee house, their
I want
kits?
to jump in real quick. I neglected to say something. We have a guest. Chris, would you please introduce our guest? I'm so sorry. And I apologize. We usually have this. It's been so long since we have a meeting, I can't remember the thing.
I introduced her to a lot of you already, but this is my neighbor across the street, Courtney Denny. And she is very interested in joining a garden club. She's a great gardener. She's really a worker. I'm so impressed with everything she and her husband have done at their place. Anyway, Courtney's very interested in what we do, and I hope you all will enjoy the meeting.
Can I tell you a story about Courtney and what gardener she is? She's my neighbor too.
Oh.
And when she moved into the house on our street on Kensington, to the neighbors, she sent out a little card that they'd moved to the area with little squash seeds in it so that we could plant them in our own garden. Isn't that nice?
Oh, good. Well, welcome, Courtney. We're so glad you came to visit us. It's a great program. We try to have good, interesting programs. We usually manage to do that too. So thank you, Rosemary. Thank you, Michelle. I'm going to let them tell you. Yes, Chris.
I want to ask one more question, maybe in your handout, but about the mud. Are we supposed to like have a certain consistency of mud? I mean, or do they just sit and play and find water somewhere and make their mud?
No, just have a place in your yard where the soil is exposed. And, if it's like a sort of a clay soil, you may, if it's hot, dry, you may want to put some water on it to make it, moist. But, we've had so much rain lately, you don't have to worry about it. Just as long as you have that space there for it, you're good. You don't have to mix it up for them.
And when do they make their mud?
This is going to be in the early spring. So in other words, they start working at the end of February. So February, March, at that particular time period. Usually we have a lot of rain, so we're good. We're good. Ladies, what we're going to have to do, you'll have to take your chairs. You're going to set up on the tables. We've got 3 tables there. And I think, are we going to move this or just leave this table here?
If we need it, we're going to move that table.
Oh, okay. But anyway, the deal is your workstations are back here. You'll need to pick up your kit. You've got your name on your kit. It's on the table on the inside there. So pick up your kit, and I guess you pick up your lunch at the same time. We're going to relocate to the tables there. There's tape and scissors. Everything there is for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
All righty. So do we have a drill? Do we have a plan? Do I know what the plan is? Oh, except that you take your.
They're
chair.
moving the chairs.
And if we need another table, we'll move this table. You disappeared.
Yeah, I just can't believe that 7 mason bees can do the same work as 500. That's amazing.
I know, I feel excited to. I have some blueberry bushes.
Oh, yeah, me too.
This is so interesting. It gets boys busy rolling up.
Such a great idea. That the monster drink that came in this thing. I think it was just, I don't know if it was the taste or the fiber. Yeah, I think that's the whole thing.
I looked out about 20 feet out in the yard. I have a tall metal like birdhouse stand. Nothing would live in there. It's been one of those
Oh, are you? Okay, y'all, when you get it wrapped around, it says notch to the edge and it just folds. So that works.
Are you having to overlap it when you fold it in or just fold it in?
It just folds, you know, notch it to the edge and then fold in.
Yeah, okay, thank you for saying. That's what I was imagining. But I wasn't
Yeah,
sure.
I was confused.
When she started talking about notching, I couldn't figure
Yeah,
out what she was
I
talking
lost it about the notching.
about. And then I
I see
figured out
what
what she
the-
was saying.
yeah.
So gonna fail this class.
No, there's no failing, no failing.
Yeah, no, here, special.
Make the whole thing, no,
First we're recording things, so you know, if you do it wrong, it'll be on the recording.
Well, I did it wrong, so there you got it. I'm seeing what Michelle meant by
By notching it,
notching.
yeah.
Where is our road? I love the way that survive this now.
You know, to keep something. And
I know, exactly. Oh, okay.
and you have to put them down a little further.
Someday.
Hey, Kathy. You got your, are you gonna make the Mason B thing here or later? Okay. Did you wanna adjourn the meeting now on video or?
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm calling the meeting to adjourn, and y'all have a great afternoon. It's been a highly successful meeting. Thank you. That was very good.
Yeah, it was.